Hi everyone. It's me again, Ianu, and I have an amazing guest. I have an amazing guest today, Jessica. She is the CEO of Stand Up to Breast Cancer. But before I dive into introduction of our guest, let me just remind you of why we're here again. This is You Have a Story with ToTsFrishion, where we bring cancer stories as a form of encouragement to people going through cancer, whether directly or indirectly. So today we're gonna be having a very casual conversation.
Yeah, just two people coming together.
Yes, about cancer and research, and we're going to be talking about the myths of cancer, all those fears you have relating to like cancer and research. We're coming to debunk those myths today, and I hope you enjoy. So, grab a tea, grab a coffee, wherever you're listening today, grab something. So, without further ado, I'm gonna introduce my guest. Not really a guest, a friend, I should say. Yeah,
Yes, I like that. I like that.
yeah, she's not a guest, she's a friend. So, Jess Jones, she's a research RN. She currently works as a cancer research nurse, who has a nonprofit organization. You can find a nonprofit organization on Facebook, on Instagram. It's Stand Up to Breast Cancer,
Yep.
and where she provides like education about breast cancer specifically and other forms of cancer too, and while creating awareness on about clinical trials. So before we start, we're talking about this. We love icebreakers, so
Yes.
we're gonna get to know Jessica a little bit today. So,
Yay.
what's on your bucket list? Something you want to do in your lifetime?
Wow, you know what? See, you starting off with a good one already. One of my closest friends was actually like, Jess, do you have a bucket list? And I was saying to myself, actually, I don't have a bucket list, but I will say this. I will say this. If I ever get the opportunity, I would love to go to Bora Bora. I don't know how to swim, okay,
Mm.
first of all. I don't know how to swim. I know it's surrounded by water, but that is definitely one place to visit that is on my bucket list is to go there because it just looks absolutely beautiful. The water looks beautiful, the surroundings, it just looks so peaceful. I want to go there. Like that's a place that I definitely want to travel before I leave this earth. So that's on my bucket list.
Well, you're gonna need some life jacket. I've not been there. You better. I don't know how to swim too, but I think I'm coming with you,
Come
and we're gonna
on.
both need some life jackets because I can't swim.
We definitely are going to have the life jackets with us and we're definitely going to go. We're going to do it.
So I'm coming with you, though. I'm coming.
Come on. Come on.
And if you had to eat one food every day of your life for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
Oh, I love food. Let me see. What would I choose to eat every single day? Shrimp used to be my favorite food, but I think it would
Okay.
have to be crabs. Crabs are like
Oh.
my thing. Like I absolutely love crabs. Before I had my second son, I used to love Chinese food and shrimp. Now that I had him, let me tell you, my taste buds have totally changed and I can't stand shrimp anymore. Can't stand Chinese food. Love salads and I never loved salads before. But crabs is something that I could eat every single day because you can make so many different variations of it. You can have crab macaroni and cheese. You can have crab cakes. You can have crabs in your pasta. You can do anything with crabs. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my thing.
Okay. I'm not
Hmm.
really a crab person, so I'll pass.
You're like, go ahead, Jess, eat all the crabs that you want.
You can have those. And okay, so one more before we dive into why we're here today. If you were famous, what would you think it would be for?
Hmm. I was famous. I think honestly, I would if I was famous, it would be known for advocating for people and for equity
Mm.
because that equity is something that I'm really, really big on. It's something that really gets me motivated and inspired. Like I really just feel like if I were famous, I'd be known for advocating and make sure people get what they need and what they
Mhm.
deserve in order to thrive. So I think that's what I'd be famous for. Definitely wouldn't be famous for singing, for acting, none of those things. No, no, none of that because I am not skilled in that. So
I think that's the nurse in you. That's the the nurturing skills in you. So yeah.
Right. That probably is because I just, I don't know, like you're a nurse too, so you may feel
Mm-hmm.
it too, but it's just, I've always just wanted to help people. Like that's just been something that's really been within me just since I can remember I was a kid. And I always felt just empathy for others too. Like even if they didn't say they were going through something, you know how you can just feel like somebody may be going through something or needs something before they even say it. Like I had that growing up, and as a result of that, it made me really empathetic and want to help others.
Yeah. So it makes me realize that that skill in you kind of led to why you started your organization, correct?
Oh my goodness, yes. Like, so, I feel like, and this has just been something that I've been thinking about recently, but I've been seeing statistics. Like black women are 42% more likely to die of cancer. Black
Hmm.
women are more likely to die while giving childbirth. And I'm like, well, why does the color of someone's skin impact their health outcomes? And I'm just like, why? Why is that? And I feel like, you know, maybe certain groups don't have access to resources, and it shouldn't be like that. So a part of me starting my organization was that I wanted people, especially communities of color, to have access to everything that everyone else has. And so part of that is research. I wanted, communities of color to know about research because I've seen it with my own eyes where it doesn't work for everyone. I'm not saying that if you go into research, it's going to work for you and it's going to cure your cancer or XYZ. Sometimes it doesn't do that. But I have seen where people are able to have a good quality of life while participating in research and also seeing their life extended. And I just want people to know about it so that they know that, yes, you may have the standard of care, in terms of your cancer treatment, but there's also clinical trials or research that you have access to. It's just a matter of you maybe educating yourself about it, or asking, because sometimes doctors, they will not ask patients if they want to participate in clinical trials, and that's really a shame right there, that everyone is not asked to participate in research.
Hmm. So that brings, I think this will lead to our next conversation. What is research? Like, what is cancer research and what is this clinical trial? Because I believe people will just read about this, they hear about it, but there's not enough informed content for people to make the right decisions, especially when they have cancer and there's these options available to them.
Yeah, so research is basically a way for people to understand if you have your standard of care drugs, if they're working, versus comparing it to your standard of care plus maybe something additional, something that's considered investigational, that's not necessarily approved by the FDA. And research, there are certain steps that you have to follow in order to prove that something works. It's not like saying, hey, I have this idea, we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to throw it together and see if it works. With research, you have to identify the right type of people that are eligible for your research that you're doing. So there's different qualifications that people, have to meet to participate in research. And this is done to make sure that they are getting the population of people that they want, but to make sure also that the results that they get can be generalized to the entire population. So that way there will not be any bias or people, so that way, we know if it works or not, because if you include bias in your research, then it's really not significant and it really doesn't show that it works. So in order to do that, you have to have something called randomization. And basically it's almost like picking a straw out of a hat, and you select people if they're going to get, the standard of care that's already FDA approved, or if you're going to get the standard of care plus something additional. And that something additional, if it shows that it works and it has good results, it's, extending people's lives, then that may become the new standard. But you have to follow different steps. There's different phases of research. Like when you are first doing research, There's like phase one where you have only like a small number of people. It might be maybe 10 or 20 people that you're looking at in this particular research study to see if what you're trying to what if you're looking at a medication to see if it works. If their results are really good, then they move on to something called phase two, and that will bring in maybe 100 or so people. And so after that, you start getting more and more people. So that way those results can be generalized. But it's a process, and there's different safety measures that are put in place. So that way, when research is being done, you make sure that you're following the protocol. And the protocol is like, think of it as an instruction manual, and it
Mhm.
tells you exactly how you're supposed to conduct the research.
That's amazing. It brings me back to like nursing school. Everything you just said. When we do this research class, I think I didn't really listen during that class though, but
Look, neither did I, because I'm telling you, the research that they have in nursing school, it's different than like the research like that I do. Like the research in nursing school is looking at like a practice like in a hospital or
Mm,
something, and they want to know, okay, like for example, like I feel like when I was in nursing school, they were looking at like bed wounds or something like that and trying to look at different practices like to prevent that. But the type of research that I do is basically it's more like it's like more like translational. Like it's different. You're looking at like medications, you're looking at also like behaviors, and you're trying to translate that research into actual practical applications that will actually help people. So that could be, influencing, behaviors, or it could be the
mhm.
development of new medications. It's more, I feel like the research that I'm doing, it's more real world and practical. Like it's different than I feel like the one in nursing school is sometimes maybe a little bit more theoretical
Yeah,
than more practical
yeah. This
sometimes.
is like real life issues that's going on.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
It's, I mean, the technology in the world has advanced to such an extent there's so many options for us out there, even in regards to like, in addition, sorry, I should say, in addition to our faith, there's also things that we can combine
Right.
to get the outcome that we all desire. So,
Right, exactly. And it's interesting that you also talk about faith too, because I feel like in the population that I work with, especially with breast cancer, a lot of people get through their diagnosis not only with the medication but their faith. Like I have a woman in particular, she is always saying that, I the only reason why I got through this clinical trial was one, through God, and then somebody recommended it to me. And she's always saying, if it wasn't but God, I wouldn't be here. God is what is helping me get through this. He just brought the right people in my life. And, I feel like too, when people have a terminal diagnosis, like metastatic breast cancer, when it spreads to other organs, outside of the breast, there's all this uncertainty, and I know, and people don't know when it's going to be their time. And so I think they use faith to help them deal with that, because there's always the question, well, when is this going to end? Like when am I no longer going to be here? When is the medication going to stop working? And man, can you imagine just living through that every single day? So people utilize faith a lot to help them
mhm.
get through their diagnosis, even if it's not terminal. But they really, really, really heavily rely on that.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
I
but
totally agree with everything you just said. Yeah. So, in addition to everything we've said so far, can we dive into like the myths about clinical research? Because there's
yeah,
a lot of fears behind it, especially with the history we have
yes, yes,
black and
especially.
brown people. I mean, everybody has their own fears too. I'm not going to say like just the black and brown people have their
Right.
fears about clinical research. There's some other ethnicities who might be so fearful about clinical research also. So, can we dive into it? Like, what's the main source of these fears, of all this myths that people have, and how can we deal with it? How can people be
Sure.
rest assured that this, if they go into this clinical trial, there will be, or there might be like a positive outcome.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I think definitely the history of research, it hasn't been one that hasn't had its issues. That history, It definitely has an influence. And I think, you know, reading like what happened in the Tuskegee experiment, what happened to
Mm-hmm.
Henrietta Lacks, what happened here in Philadelphia, the Holmesburg Junction experiments. I feel like all those things have like muddied the water in terms of people's perspective on clinical trials. And I also think too, outside of just research, just care within the healthcare system among Black and Brown communities, it hasn't necessarily been good. You know, a lot of people say that they don't feel seen and heard. And, you know, I think, you know, it's that right there, probably the fear and some of the myths are associated with that trauma that has happened with people's experiences with the healthcare system. And so I think that's where, you know, a lot of that has come from. But their fears are, they're valid. They are very valid. And when I first heard about research or was thinking about even participating in research, I was like, whoa, I don't know about this, because I thought, I'm worried about the side effects. And two, I don't want to be treated like a guinea pig. And the thought of being treated, yes, like a guinea pig, that is probably the one thing that I hear the most, is like, I'm worried that, you know, people are just going to experiment on me, and, you know, I'm just going to be a science experiment. But, you know, things have changed. There's still things that, you know, need to get better, but there are safeties in place to try to prevent that from happening. So the US has regulations that prevent, you know, certain things from happening. And one of the main things when people participate in research is the patient safety. So that's why they have something called informed consent.
Mm.
Informed consent outlines what the purpose of the study is, the risks, the benefits, the side effects, what's expected to happen, and it outlines the rights of the patient also as well if they decide to participate in research. You know, it tells them that at any time that they can stop participating in a clinical trial. You know, and so they say that you have the right to ask questions. Like there's that right there allows people, before they even say they want to go in, to be fully aware about what is happening and their rights and responsibilities. And also with that, like I was mentioning before, there's protocols that say that we have to do certain things while we're in the study. There's certain treatment parameters that we have to follow, because our number one thing as a clinical researcher is to make sure that patients are safe. We also have a overseeing body called the Institutional Review Board, which reviews what goes on in our studies to make sure we are doing everything ethically sound. So there are safety and checks in place to make sure that people are safe, and that way they do not feel like a guinea pig. And I will tell you, for me, when anybody comes to see me, they're not just a number. They're not just somebody who was on a research study. The care that I give them is the same type of care that I would want my mom, my grandmother, my aunts, my family, extended family, friends. I give them that same amount of care that I would want. When we're working together, because I say, you know, I may be teaching them about the research study, you know, what to expect, but I'm also learning from them as well. I learn
Mm.
about who they are, what matters to them. And I think that's what makes it really a good relationship, because they are not just numbers to me. They are actual people who have lives outside of research and are more than their cancer diagnosis. So when a lot of people will say that, and they'll ask me, why did you get into research? And I tell them the things that I'm telling you. One is because I want people to have access to resource. I want diversity in clinical trials, because we could be doing all this research, but if we don't have representation from white, black, Indian, Asian, Hispanic, we won't know if these drugs actually work for people. If the majority of people who are participating are one race, yeah, we'll know what it looks like within that one race. But drugs are different when you are introducing it into other races. Our DNA is, you know, different, our genetic makeup. They also have an impact on how these medications work. So that's why it's important that everyone be represented in clinical trials. So that's you know, the guinea pig thing. That's a really, really
Yeah.
crucial one.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Believe, I think that's the main fear people have. Even some, to be honest, sometimes I have that fear too. Should I say, call it fear? I want to call it real fear, but it's just something that comes because I don't like using that word fear. It's like
Yeah. Yes.
it's just something that comes to your mind, especially people who have like terminal illness
Yep.
or cancer. They don't want to be used as a specimen, I should say.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And
People
I
want things, yeah, sorry, people want
nope.
things that are tried and trusted. They don't want to be the example being used, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, like you mentioned something that was really, really key was trust. And, I feel like in the medical system, like that relationship between your healthcare team, it's so important. I think sometimes, when I'll just say this. I'll speak for myself because everyone is different. I
Hmm.
get along like fabulous with pretty much anyone, as long as they're treating me with dignity and respect. I can get along with anyone, but it hits different when I see a healthcare provider who looks like me, because I feel like I don't have to be on guard sometimes. Sometimes I feel like, okay, like I can just show up like as me, like I don't feel like I'm being judged or anything like that. And so I think sometimes too, with a lack of diversity in the healthcare setting, like sometimes there's that hesitation because of that. You don't have somebody who's looking like you, who's actually conducting the research. And that's why I like to be in research, because I like to show people that, hey, there is somebody that looks like you and that is going to be looking out for you and going to be supporting and advocating for you every step of the way.
Yeah. It's a very good point you brought up because it gives people like more reassurance that if I have someone there who's there to advocate for me, and that's the nursing intuitive. That's just the nursing skills that we have because I put myself like whenever I have patients too. I'm a labor and delivery nurse. Like whenever I have patients who come to the like who are assigned to me to
Mm-hmm.
be their nurse for the day. I put myself in their situation, and like you said, I believe you said this earlier on. You want to treat people the way you want to be treated. You want to treat people the way you want your sister, you whoever your friend to be treated.
Yes.
So putting ourselves in people's shoes help us to see and to go through what they're going through the lens of how they are.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that right there, it's incredibly important that we do that. Like, I think it's so important. And I feel that, when you do that, people also can feel that energy, and they're just feel that it almost feels like a weight is lifted. They're
Mhm.
dealing with so much, but when they get somebody like you who is empathetic and really truly cares for your patients, they're like, okay, because they're already in a stressful situation. Like having a baby is
Yeah.
stressful. So then when you have somebody who's kind and caring like you, it's like, okay, I can breathe a little bit because I
Hmm.
know I'm going to be cared for. So yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yes,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
moving on, we talked about one of the main thing, like that's the fear of people being used as a guinea pig.
Hmm.
How can people move past beyond this way of thinking that they've kind of embedded in themselves?
I feel like honestly, one piece of it is education, and I think you can definitely start with your adults and like people who are our age and things like that. Like there's incredible information out there, but I think if we're truly going to move forward with this, I think it needs to start even at younger ages, even like with children. Like we need to like start educating children at younger ages about research, what it is, so that way they can be informed about it. Because honestly, I find that the children sometimes when they learn something, they're like sponges. They go back and they tell their parents, that they go back and tell their grandparents, and then after that, then the community starts to become aware about what's going on. And so I feel like you've got to start early on at a younger age to educate. And I feel like with that education, then we may be able to get some diversity into the health and the science fields to change the narrative of what's going on with our researchers, our healthcare providers, so that way there's more people that look like the communities that we want to see in research, more diversity. So I think education is definitely needed. Within the community. And I also think too, this is huge, but I think there needs to be cultural and sensitivity training, I think, among researchers and healthcare providers too, because each and every one of us, we have our own experiences and we bring our own biases into the settings, but sometimes a person's biases may influence their thinking about whether this is a good clinical trial candidate or if they should even ask a person about participating in a clinical trial. And so I think there needs to be some type of training within healthcare providers
Mm-hmm.
to educate them about the history of research and the impact that it has had among communities of color. I think there needs to be an understanding about that because, yes, they may know about it, but do they really understand the impact and the trauma of those negative things that have occurred in research? So I think that really does need to happen. And I know they're working on, legislative things too, but I really do think education is key. I think there needs to be more visibility of, Black and brown researchers. I feel like people need to hear about maybe like, I don't know if you heard it, but they, with Henrietta Lacks, the pharmaceutical company finally acknowledged their wrongdoing for that. It's been years, but that's a step forward. But I really feel like, there needs to be more also of a trust with pharmaceutical companies too, because pharmaceuticals run these clinical trials. People need to feel like that their genetic information is safe. It's not going to be sold, and there's just a lot of mistrust. And I think that there needs to be maybe some type of, I don't know, some type of something so that way people can get that trust, especially with pharma and the healthcare providers. It needs to be, it needs to
Yeah.
change. I know within pharma there are people who do help. There are patient advocates who really, really fight hard for patient rights, but people don't know about that because there's so many negative things that they hear about pharma companies and research and things of that nature. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
And I second what you just said. And I feel as people, we need people who have integrity,
Yes.
who have, I will also say, the fear of God in them.
Yes. Yes,
That
indeed.
they know that like whatever they're doing, there's someone always watching behind them. So
Absolutely.
I feel like that would make people be on their toes and just be mindful of how they do things, especially to other people. It's just so sad that in our world today we don't have the genuine love for people anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
I,
all about the money, it's all about what they can benefit. People are just like, oh, what can I benefit from you? It's not always about like giving. It's all about take it. So I don't know. I can rant about that all
yeah.
day.
I look, I couldn't agree with you more. Like it's really sad that I feel like sometimes people profit off of other people's misfortunes, and it should not be like that at all. And I feel like you said, there needs to be accountability. There needs to be
Mhm.
accountability. And sometimes I feel like that, people don't take accountability for what they've done, for their mistakes. They just
Mhm.
are focused on the money. And
Mhm.
it's not okay. And you see, when people are focused on money, it really doesn't benefit everyone else.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, money is good. Don't get me wrong. It's good. See, if you send me money right now, I would accept it.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not always about the money.
No, no, it really isn't. It's not. And it really makes me sad that it sometimes can be that way. But,
Mhm.
hopefully one day more people will not think like that, and things will change.
Yes.
Hmm.
Hopefully, I
Yes,
long to see that day happen. I really do.
exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. This has been an amazing conversation. I really learned a lot. But as we round up, what will you tell someone who's debating if he or she can go into like a clinical trial after a cancer diagnosis? What would you tell them?
If you're thinking about going into a clinical trial, before you even make that decision, I want you to research it. Research all of your options. I want you to think about one, your quality of care. I want you to think about, if you were to participate in a research study, what would your life look like? How would the visits impact your life? Think about the side effects. Would you still be able to do what you would like to do? I really want you to make an informed decision about what you're doing. Do you think that this will help with you managing your cancer? I want you to use your voice. If you have any questions, ask. Do not be afraid. There's no question that's too big or too small that we cannot help answer and help you figure it out. If you're worried about support, if you're worried about expenses, come and talk to me. We will figure out a way to do it. But there's no pressure for you to decide to participate in a clinical trial, because at the end of the day, we want, or rather, I want you to do what is best for you.
Mhm.
A clinical trial might not be best for you because there may be a lot of visits and requiring you to come to the clinic a lot. So, getting treated off of a clinical trial might be best for you. But do what you think is best for you. It doesn't matter what the doctor thinks, what anybody else thinks, what I think. What matters is what you think is most helpful and beneficial to you. But whatever you do, never, never silence that voice of yours, because your voice is so important. Yes, I may have information about cancer, so may the doctor. But at the end of the day, you know what feels right, you know what does not feel right for you. So use that voice, because your voice is the most powerful thing that you can ever have.
Hmm. That's powerful. Use your voice because that's the most powerful thing that you have. And I'm gonna put a sprinkle to everything you said.
Go
Right.
ahead.
That's it. Right. But yeah, but in addition to everything she said, if you have a strong faith, or I would encourage you to just, like we said before, faith and medicine, mix it up together
Yes,
and hand it over
yes,
to God. That's it.
yes. Honestly, I'll tell you, before you even say yes or no, the first person you should go to is God.
Mm.
Because God, if you go to Him, He will give you the answer that you need to make. So go to God, be educated and aware of your choices, but go to God first in all things, and He will make your path straight.
Mm.
Believe it.
Right, sister. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. It's like I'm talking to you, someone I know for 10 years.
But look, I feel so passionate about it. So I look, anytime I can talk about research, it makes me happy. It's something
Yeah.
that, just really is, I don't know. I guess I'm just an inquisitive person and I just have
Hmm.
questions, but being in it for so long, I just see how, it can really have a positive impact on people's lives. So I'm like, here, if anybody has questions, reach
Yeah.
out. But I really encourage you, if you are interested, research it, learn about it. And if nobody is asking you, ask them about research and if
Yeah.
there's anything available.
So where can they find you? You've been saying reach out to me, reach out to me, reach out to me. Where can they find you?
So if you are on social media, you can reach me at Stand Up to Breast Cancer on Instagram. That's Stand Up the number two breast cancer, or you can reach out to me at the same email, stand up the number two breast cancer at gmail.com. Reach out to me, send me a message. You can also go on my website, www. Did I say a lot of? I think I said four W's, but
So good.
www.standup, and then it's ToBreastCancer.org. Go on my website. There's a spot where you can say contact me, send me a message, and I will definitely reach back out to you. I'm here for you if you need anything. If you need to find a clinical trial, have questions about research, come on and have a chat with me. I'm here for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Thank you. This was an incredible conversation. Personally, before we started this, I knew zero information about clinical research related to breast cancer in general. But I've been educated, and I hope if you listen to this to the end of this recording, that you've been educated and you are able to make an informed decision. Disclaimer: these are just recommendations.
Yes. Yes.
As
Just
nurse, as
recommendation.
medical professionals, we know that you shouldn't be taking information. I mean, take information from us, but
Yes.
you be informed to the extent that when you talk to your doctors, your nurses, you can discuss in details with them. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. Definitely. If you're interested, talk to your healthcare provider. But these are just recommendations.
We had to put the disclaimer in there. But it's been such an incredible time again. I really enjoyed our conversation. It's like I said, look, I knew you for like 20 years. Huh? Just kidding. I exaggerated at 20 years. Okay, let me
Well,
stop.
it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, I'm like, what? We really had this conversation. It feels like I just started having a
I
conversation.
know.
But it's been an absolute pleasure. And I just thank you for using this wonderful platform to inform people. I feel like what you're doing is so important. So keep up the amazing work. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And like I always say, all glory to God for the inspiration. Yeah, we've come to another end of You Have a Story with ToTsFrishion. I'll call it this a special episode. Cancer research in the midst of. So thank you for listening. I hope you were inspired. I hope you were encouraged. I hope also you were informed with everything we've discussed here today. um Catch us next month or whenever you listen to this for another incredible episode. We'll be bringing to you a cancer story next time. All right, stay blessed, and as always, much love.